Hello again, Taylor County. I'm Alex Renneman with Unleashed Tiger, and I'm here with Kendra Fershee. Kendra, thank you for coming on the program.
My pleasure.
So, Kendra, you're running for 1st Congressional District.
That's right.
And why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are?
Sure. I'm a law professor. I teach at WVU, mostly family law courses. I'm a mom, and I've got 2 kids in public schools in Mon County, actually in Morgantown. My husband is also a law professor. And, you know, I just am a sort of accidental congressional candidate on top of all of that.
Great. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that? Because this is obviously a new experience for you.
Yeah.
So you campaigned in the primary, and now you've been campaigning in the general. So you probably heard from a lot of the constituents across the district, which is a pretty lengthy district in terms of travel, unfortunately for you. But tell us a little bit about what you're hearing from folks. What's important to people out here?
So you're right. It's 20 counties across north central West Virginia. Fortunately for me, I live sort of in the center of it in Morgantown. So, you know, my commute isn't as bad, and I've used that as an opportunity to really get out into the district as much as possible.
Great.
My campaign is grassroots, and I love to listen to people about their concerns. And it won't be a surprise that one of the main concerns for people right now is the drug addiction crisis. You know, that is, I think it kind of ties together a lot of other issues that we have in that it has to do with our economic stability. When you don't have a workforce that's healthy enough to work, that hurts your economy. It hurts our schools because teachers are having to, you know, help students who are struggling with addiction in their homes. And it obviously is a strain on the healthcare system. So it ties together the 3 big issues that I think are really affecting West Virginia, which are healthcare, economy, obviously community, and stability in those communities, and then education.
That's great. You know, those challenges are not small.
Yeah, that's right.
A couple more questions on the folks at home in terms of what you're hearing from them. What would you like to address in terms of their perception of what maybe you can accomplish as a congresswoman? What would you like to maybe turn back to them and let them know? Here's the best way to adjust.
Yeah. So I think one of the most important things that we need to focus on in West Virginia right now is the fact that people don't feel free to stay here. People are leaving West Virginia in record numbers. People are dying in record numbers from the drug addiction crisis. And that's, I think, at the same root, which is our communities are not what they were. Our communities are struggling, and people are struggling, and they don't see a future, unfortunately, in this place that we all love. And they don't want to leave. People want to be here, but they just don't see how that can happen. So I think my number 1 priority is to make West Virginia a number 1 priority. So I compare this situation that we're in to the NFL draft. When you are the worst team in the league the season before, you get first pick in the NFL draft in the next season. We are 50th on so many measures. Over and over again, every study you see, every single thing that is printed, you see it in the newspaper, state ranking on, you know, X topic, and you know we're going to be 50th. It's heartbreaking. But when you're 50th, I think you have the best argument in the country for being number 1 priority until you're no longer 50th. And I don't see our elected officials doing that for us right now, and that's what we need.
Yeah, that's great. You know, one of the things we often say on this program and in our organization is a republic is not a spectator sport.
That's right.
So as folks are at home listening and they're hearing this, what are you asking of them to help you if you're able to win and be our congresswoman? What are the kinds of things you'll ask from them to help you be successful, for us to be successful?
Well, I need to know where the need is. You know, in terms of, for example, a lot of communities need grant money. This is the way the federal government funds a lot of initiatives in communities to help with whatever challenges they have. One of my ideas is to have someone who works on my staff whose job it is to help communities file grant applications, because that's the last thing that you want to have to do when you see a crisis coming at you. So what I'll need to know from communities is where the need it exactly is and what exactly the federal government can do to help with that need so that we can get the resources there as quickly as possible. I mean, certainly we know that the drug addiction crisis is going to be a number 1 priority, but what we keep seeing is, you know, the Senate passed 99-1 yesterday, a huge package to fight opioid addiction, which is largely, missing funding. To fight the AIDS crisis, there were billions of dollars going to states that we're not seeing for this crisis, which is at least as bad as the HIV/AIDS crisis. So we need funding in the communities, and we need it yesterday.
Yeah, you can't ask somebody around here if they haven't been affected in one way or another.
That's right.
Friends, family, themselves. I mean, it's just it's widespread without a doubt. So to that, you got big challenge. I mean, these are big things.
Yeah.
Public service is hard,
Yeah.
and on the national level, it seems even harder. And you mentioned you kind of an accidental candidate. Why are you doing this? Why are you going up against this?
Well, the way you've asked the question is exactly right. You said public service is hard. I don't see, one, that we have public servants who are actually serving this state and these communities, and I don't see them working hard. One of the things that I said to people when I was early on, when I was thinking about running, which really came about as a result of me putting on Facebook the morning after the presidential election, we need real change in Congress. What we're seeing is going to get us farther from solutions. And I tagged a whole bunch of women that I thought would be great to run for office. And their response was, "Good idea, Kendra, you'd be great." And I was like, for smart people, you don't read so well. And but it started me thinking. And I started talking to people about it. And when people would say to me, yeah, we need change. We need people who are working people. We need people who are, different than anybody who's ever been there before. We need people who've never run before. We need people who are not independently wealthy. All of the things that people said they wanted in a candidate are me. And I realized, the fact that I have a full-time job and I can't afford to quit it actually makes me a good candidate because I understand what it means to serve. And so, yeah, the last year, it's been almost a year since I declared, has been incredibly hard work, but that's exactly what we need our representatives doing for us.
Yeah, I would agree. Let's kind of go into how you tick, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll ask the question, what is your leadership philosophy? And what I mean by that, I'm going to give you some context, and we can obviously dig into it more. And the reason I ask the question is, folks that we've polled in our community continually, time and time again, every election cycle, Kendra, and it seems like it's getting more and more as we go. They feel there's a lack of leadership in our community, and certainly on the national level as well. There's we'll get to some of the partisan stuff later. But how is it, from your leadership philosophy, do you stay ahead, informed? How do you stay proactive? What goes through in your decision-making process?
Yeah.
How do you set the goals, the priorities, and then also measure against them, make sure you're succeeding?
Right.
That's really what.
Yeah. No, it's a process question. How does you can talk about substance, and I want to get X done. But how you get there is more important in some ways than the substance. I actually also teach civil procedure, which is a legal course about how you put a lawsuit together. What's the process? And so I tell my students, sometimes process is more important than substance. So you have a lawsuit about a dog bite, right? But if you don't file that lawsuit right, you lose your chances at getting any recovery for that injury. So process is really important. And my philosophy about process is that I am a problem solver, not a solution bringer. I think one of the problems we have right now is too many people who show up and say, I have the answer, this is the only answer, and there's no way we can fix the problem unless we do it exactly like this. That will never get anybody anywhere, because the entire structure of the government, the entire process that we're supposed to go through requires disagreement, dissent, compromise, and so we have to go in with an attitude of problem solving. And I think what we're going to see in this election is a whole lot of problem solvers elected who want to do that. The other thing I'll say is public service is, sometimes our elected officials think their only job is to vote, right? The job is more than half service. So what I plan on doing is focusing on West Virginia, making sure that people see me, that people know that I'm listening. I'm going to be in the communities. I'm going to do town halls that are open to anybody. They can ask any question and I will hear what they have to say, because my job is not to show up with an answer that I think is right. It's to make sure my constituents are heard and their solutions are brought into that number one draft pick position.
I love it. You know the old saying, when you're carrying a hammer, everything's a nail.
Yeah,
right?
That's right. That's exactly right.
If you're successful in this run, and we sit down next cycle, what is it you'd like to say you've been able to accomplish? And I know you're going to, if so, you'd be going into a large body, and there's
Right.
not, it's not like a one handle. But what is it you'd like to say you've accomplished?
Well, one of the things I think we need is a better federal policy with respect to letting the states start new revenue streams like medical cannabis. We have a law in West Virginia that makes medical cannabis legal for people who need it with a prescription. And yet we have the federal government getting in the way of all states that have any form of legalized cannabis because it's illegal at the federal level. Banking is problematic. It's very difficult to set up those systems. Here's a brand new revenue stream that could not only provide a safe pain alternative for people who are getting addicted to heavy-duty opioids, but it could bring in a whole new revenue stream that is taxable and is that people can put on their property. One of the things that people have in West Virginia is property. They have land. And right now it's not valued at much because, there's a whole lot of, problems we have in West Virginia, and so people aren't flooding in here to buy property. But people can work that land. And if we had micro grants coming from the federal government so that people could start up a small farming operation for hemp or medical cannabis, I think that could really turn around our economy. I mean, it has in other states. There's no reason why it wouldn't work for us.
Yeah, interesting. What do you see as the biggest challenge for whoever fills this office, whether it's you or the incumbent? What is the biggest challenge they're walking into?
Yeah, I mean, part of it's the sort of Venn diagram, the overlapping issues that we have. One of the things that I think is our biggest challenge is our education system. Our schools are struggling and they don't have the resources they need. And so, we talk about bringing in new business to West Virginia, which we have to do. One of the ways to do that is to cut taxes. And that's the first response usually for people. Well, we need business. Let's just cut their taxes. Tell them, come in. We'll make sure that you have a great tax rate and you can start your business here or grow your business here. And they still don't come. And that's because the businesses know there are tax breaks all over the country. They're not going to move somewhere where the schools aren't good because their employees won't come if their families are, compromised by being here. And so we need to be sure that we are no longer at the bottom in terms of the public education resources that we have. And those schools that in West Virginia are the hub in many communities, the #1 employer in many counties. If we're not making sure our schools are strong, that hurts everything. That everything is attached to that at some point or another.
It does. It absolutely does.
Yeah.
When you look at the incumbent who you're running against now, what would you say have been his biggest successes and alternatively his failures?
Well, I think honestly, I will say he actually has been okay when it comes to his concerns for working people in West Virginia. My frustration with him is that he doesn't listen enough to his constituents. He makes easy votes, so he might vote in the right way on certain things, like he does support some education funding, but only when that bill is going to pass by a huge margin. He doesn't do anything to fight for West Virginia. He doesn't make West Virginia a #1 priority. And my concern is, so he's not, he's fiscally conservative, which means that he actually doesn't want federal dollars to be spent. And so he's not fighting for federal dollars for West Virginians. He also takes a lot of corporate PAC money, which allows him to do exactly what he's doing, which is not going into communities, not listening to constituents, not taking questions from people. He doesn't need to, because he's got plenty of money to buy the name recognition that he needs. So instead of going to talk to someone, he can send them a glossy mailer, either from a corporate PAC donation, from dark money, which is coming into this district to the tune of at least $250,000, or with our taxpayer dollars, because he's one of the worst offenders when it comes to franking privileges, where Congress gets to send mailers out into the district without actually paying for it from a campaign fund.
Yeah, great. So if I sit down, if folks roll into the election in November, and they see your name, why are they voting for you? Why vote for Kendra?
Well, I think what I've said before is that I'm very different from David McKinley. And the way that I'm different is that I don't need this job. I don't need to do anything but what I'm doing. I have a job I absolutely love. I love teaching. I love my students. I wouldn't change it for the world. The only thing that I would rather do more is serve this district. So the reason to vote for me is what I hear all throughout the district about David McKinley is that he's never there. He doesn't listen. He doesn't see people. He doesn't ask questions. He doesn't, respond to the needs in the community. And that, when you are in a position like we are, that can't be for an elected official. His job is to serve, and the constituents are the masters. And right now, I think he's got that reversed.
Gotcha. Kendra Fershee, stay with us. We've got part 2 coming up. Again, I'm Alex Renman with Kendra Fershee. She's running for the 1st Congressional District. Thank you.
Thank you.